Welcome to my channel, and I'm back with you once again with another video of Microsoft Flight Simulator 24. This video is a complete tutorial of the Boeing 787-10 in the simulator, in which I will take you through all the procedures like how to start this plane from the cold and dark state, how to configure the FMC, and how to fly this plane on autopilot and perform an ILS approach and landing. Now, when I'm making a video, I'm always keeping this thing in mind that the beginners will be watching it with little or no experience of this plane. So that's why I just try to keep things really simple and to the point, but I just try to explain everything. So just to begin with, this is the overhead panel, which has the controls for the electrical systems, for the hydraulic systems, for the fuel, the lights, and then you have controls for the cabin pressurization and air conditioning. Then this is the mode control panel of the plane, and from here you will control different modes of the autopilot. On the left hand side and on the right hand side you have EFIS, and with the help of this EFIS, which is Electronic Flight Instrument System, you control different views of the navigation display, which are over here. And these are the actually buttons to control also different views on the navigation display. You can see different information related to systems, and you can also get the checklist over here on any of the screens. Now, let me just change the view, and this is the prime flight display, and this is the navigation display. Then this is a large screen, which is used for the FMC or the flight management computer. Then these are the thrust levers. You have control for the flaps and the speed brakes. Then this is the pedestal. You have the communication controls over here, and plus for the navigation if you want to tune into any navigator. So let me just adjust the view and start this plane from the cold and dark state. But before this, make sure that the throttles are in the idle position, and the parking brake is also set, and the speed brakes are disengaged. Just make sure they are like this. And flaps are also retracted. Then the gear lever is down, and the wipers are off, which are over here. You have the control over here. And then you have these fuel control switches for the plane. Just make sure they're off. Now, in order to start this plane, you should have some power in the plane by turning on the battery. So this is the control for the battery. And now there will be some power. Then for this plane, the external power is already available because the plane cannot keep on running on the batteries. It needs some external power, because if you keep on running the plane on the batteries will drain out. So that's why if the external power is not available, then you can call for it. Otherwise, if it says available, then you can turn it on. So just press these buttons, and now you have the external power. This is not used generally for the flight. It's required for the maintenance. So you can just keep it like this, or if you want to turn it on, you can then turn it on. Just make sure that you have these two buttons on, the cabin utility and the in-flight entertainment system for the passenger seats. It's also on. That's it. Now you have power in the plane. All the displays are up and running. Press this button to get rid of this caution. Now, there is one more thing that you have to just ensure, that the hydraulic pumps are off. You have these primary hydraulic pumps. They should be on, but the C1 and C2 electric pumps and demand electric pumps, they're off. And that's it. Anything else? No. So before I begin, I will configure the FMC. So press Shift 3. And you will go to this view. This is the ident page, which will show the model of the plane. And let me just change the frequency of the radio, 126. That's it. So now, as this radio communication is off, let's proceed. So go to Index over here, and over here in the settings, first of all, you have this iris align time. You have the settings for it. IRS is an inertial reference system. It's used to get the GPS coordinates for the plane. So if you set it to real, it will take like 6 to 7 minutes. Accelerated, it will take 2 to 3 minutes, or instant, it will done instantly. So you can just change these settings. And with this, press Shift 7, go to the overhead panel. And over here you have 2 knobs for the iris. Just set them to on. And now the iris alignment will be complete. And it's done instantly. So that's why you don't have to worry about anything. Now for the weight and balance, you can set the passengers 344, and then you can set the cargo. Let's say if I want to set it to 15,000, I can set it, or 15 tons, and then you can even set it by setting the payload 80% or 90%. Then you have the zero fuel weight of the plane. This is the weight without the passengers, without the fuel, but includes the passengers and the cargo. And then you have the fuel. So you don't have a proper calculator for this plane right now if you're not using SimBrief to get the fuel, how much fuel is required for this flight. So that's why you can just use any of the amounts, as you're not paying from your pocket, so you can just keep it. But you can just change it if you want. Let's say if I want to carry 30 tons. And that's it. And now this is the center of gravity. It will be required for the takeoff performance calculation. So let's go back. And let's go to the index, and I can go to this option position. But with this, as the fueling is now complete, you can turn on the seatbelt signs. So you have the seatbelt sign, just set them to auto, and that's it. Now for the reference airport, you will use the ICAO code for King Khalid International Airport, OERK. And that's it. Then go to this option route, and over here you can get the flight plan from the Microsoft Flight Planner. I'm not going into the details of the FMC configuration that because I've already uploaded a video, so you can just go and watch that video. So from Riyadh to Abu Dhabi, and that's it. And I can send this route to avionics and just press execute, and that's it. And then the flight number can be anything. I just use AA123. Now you have the flight plan, and you can just get rid of the yoke. And if you go to this option plan, you can just go through this complete flight plan by pressing this option step in this option legs. And you will see the complete flight plan over here in the navigation display. You can zoom in and zoom out by using this knob. And you will see that the complete flight plan is there, without any discontinuity or without any issues. So you can just change the view and go to this option. I will also make another video in which I will tell you how to manually enter the flight plan over here. But for this video, I'm just using the electronic flight bag for this. Now go to this initialization page. And for here, you need the zero fuel weight. So click this button. You will get the zero fuel weight, 178 tons. And now you have the gross weight. The fuel is appearing over here as well, 15 tons on both of the sides, the left and the right side, and there's nothing in the center tank. So the reserves, I use, like, if I'm using 30 tons of fuel, I use like 2 or 3 tons of fuel. Let's say I keep 2 tons. And that's it. Now you have the cruising altitude for this flight. It will be 36,000. So I can just type 360, flight level 360 or 36,000. It will just pick it up. Now the cost index, it's actually a number which determines the rate of fuel burned during the flight. So higher the number, more fuel is burned. Plane goes at a higher speed, but the range of the plane decreases. And if you keep a small number, let's say 20 or 30, then the speed at the cruising altitude decreases, but the range increases. And plane goes at a slow speed, but the range is more. So for the flights that I do, I keep the cost index at 80, and that's it. Press execute. Now you need the CG for cruise. So let's go to settings, and it's 29.52. So just go to this option, 29.52. I think it just takes the rounded value, so I can keep like 30. And that's it. Now for the thrust limit and takeoff, I will use this takeoff performance calculator. Just go over here to this tab, go to performance and copy FMC data. Airport OERK runway, you can select it. It's already there. It's same. If I go to departure, arrival, yeah, 15, right? That's right. That's it. So no intersection, condition is dry. Let's get the wind and the outside temperature. So go to this option, and in the weather, you will get the wind, 70 degrees, 2 knots. So 70 degrees /2. And the outside temperature is 16. By the way, today it was raining at Riyadh. A beautiful weather. Now it has stopped, but since morning it was raining. So, it's a good surprise. And 1021. Let me just check, because, over here I have seen that, it's not correct. So if I want to set the altimeter, what will be the barometric pressure? Change the units to HPA and press comma. So it's 1019 instead of 1021. It happens. This discontinuity kind of a thing is happening when I am adjusting the temperature. Because nowadays it's winter and it's like kind of very smoggy and foggy in different areas. So that's why I just set the weather to clear. That's why I get this error. Otherwise, if you're using real weather, then I don't think so this issue will be there. So the QNH will be 1019. That's it. And the CG was 30. Just set it over here. And then thrust rating, used optimum thrust for the takeoff and optimum flaps for the takeoff. Anti-ice is off, and that's it. Now press calculate. Now on the screens you will see this ATM written with a big font. It means assumed temperature method. So for the takeoff performance calculator actually assumes that the outside temperature is really hot. So that's why the flight management system actually reduces the thrust for the takeoff. As you can see, only 57% of thrust is required for the takeoff, not like 100%. And the outside temperature is like 16 degrees, but it's 47 in the assumed temperature method. So it's used actually to put less stress on the engine. Now you have to do one thing. Just send this output to FMC, and let's go back. That's it. Now you can accept it. Just set the CG, and there you are. That's it. Now the FMC pre-flight is complete. Now press Shift 3, go back to this view, and now you have the option of the checklist. You can see the checklist over here on the screen. Now over here you will see these two buttons, left and right. I think too much traffic outside. I live in an apartment. It's just like on the main road. And kindly excuse me for that. It's not my fault. So you have this option MFD, which shows left and right. So if I select right, then whatever I select over here, it will be shown over here. And if I select, let's say, CDU, system, checklist, or ND, then on the left side, I can also change. So let's get the checklist over here, or maybe you can get the checklist over here on this side. Now pre-flight, parking brakes are set, fuel control switches are cut off, and now it's done. So you can press normal and go back to this page before start. So passenger signs are on. Now we have to set the mode control panel. So for the mode control panel, make sure that the flight director is on. You will see this cross over here, which actually helps the plane to follow the flight path. Turn on the auto throttle. Now for the speed, over here you have this speed V2, which is the speed at which the plane can fly without one engine. So right after the takeoff, you want to, get to this speed. So set it over here, 165 knots. I was talking to one of the pilots. They told me that as per their complete procedure, they add 10 to it. So instead of 165, to be on the safe side, they used to keep it at 175. Now this is now the heading. You have to set the heading for the runway. So let's get it from this SID, Standard Instrument Departure. Which is 147 degrees. So let's set the bank. Oh, sorry, the heading. I said bank because, there's this control for the bank. If you look at the screens, you have two knobs over here, the smaller one and the larger one. So if you move the larger one, you can set the bank angle for the turn. So right now it's set to auto. That's it. And the cruising altitude, I kept it at, like, if I'm not wrong, it was 36,000. Yeah, 36,000 feet. That's it. So now the mode control panel is set. Takeoff speeds are there. CDU pre-flight complete. Now the trim. I cannot adjust the trim because right now the hydraulic systems are not running, so you cannot adjust the trim for the takeoff. So let me just change the view, and now let's start this plane. Now make sure that the primary flight computer is set to auto, covered, and the APU generators, they're on, and that's it. Again, you have flight deck door power. Just turn it on. Emergency lights, arm them and close it. Then turn it on, and window heats, you can turn it on. Now these are the hydraulic pumps for C1, C2. Just central 1 and central 2. Set them to auto, and demand pumps also, set them to auto. And let's turn on the fuel pumps. Anti-ice, you can set it to auto. Turn on the beacon and the nav light. Beacon is the light which tells the ground crew that you're going to start the plane. So it's like a red light on the top of the plane and at the bottom. And you have the nav lights on the wings. Not so much visible. The green light and the red light. Okay. So you have these things on, turn on the packs, and that's it. Now it's time to turn on the APU. Now just move this switch to start, and then it will just go back to on. Now you will see that the APU is running, and once the numbers will stabilize, then the APU will be available. And with this, the external power will be automatically disconnected. So this is an automatic system in this plane. In the Boeing 737, you have to do it yourself, but in the 787, you don't. So let's wait for the APU to be available. Then you can look at the electrical information. Right now you can see power is coming from the APU. Then hydraulic systems are off, as you can see on your screens. Then this is the fuel information. This is for the air and for the doors and gears, flight controls, and everything. So now you can see that APU is available, 100% RPM, exhaust gas temperature is 269 degrees centigrade. And now you can see that the external power is now disconnected. That's it. So everything is looking good so far. I think I haven't left anything, just making sure. Now I can call for the pushback. Just go to this option and then ground services, tune it to ground, and request pushback and release the parking brake.
Ground Boeing Hotel Zulu.
Now the pushback is started. It automatically turns right. Straight. Can I do this?
Ground Boeing Hotel Zulu. Juliet Yankee Delta requesting pushback tug to push the aircraft straight.
Boeing Hotel Zulu. Juliet Yankee Delta, your request has been transmitted to the operator.
And now I can steer to the left because you know the runway is on the other side.
Ground Boeing Hotel Zulu. Juliet Yankee Delta requesting pushback tug to steer the aircraft to the left.
As you can see that you can also get this airport map by zooming in. So this is a very good feature in this plane. That's it. Now you can turn on the engines. So you see the switch over here for the engine. So let's start the engine. You can just start both of the engines at the same time for this plane. And now this is the fuel control switch for the left engine and for the right engine. Now, as the engines will be available, the hydraulic systems will also work. And then you can adjust the trim and then you can carry out the flight control test. Now the pushback is complete and I can adjust the trim. So you can see the trim should be 3.5 nose down. So you can press this button to change the trim for the takeoff, whether to pitch up or down during the takeoff. And plus I also have control on my controller. So I will set it to 3.5. And that's it. Now TCAS is off. So if you go here, you can see, I think it's control 6, 7, 8, 9, 4. Yeah, this is a good view. So you can keep it at TARA. And that's it. So now the trim is set, taxi and takeoff briefing done, normal. And before taxi, now NTIs should be on. So, but over here you can just set it auto. No need for it because you're not flying in the icing conditions. You just keep it at auto. And now you have to do this thing, recall. So you see this button over here, recall. And you just press it, make sure that there are no errors over here. So if there are any, they will appear. Just make sure that they disappear. And now this is the auto brake for the takeoff. In case you want to reject the takeoff, then these brakes will come into action. So set these brakes to RTO. And now let's do the flight control test. So just bring up the system. So let's say if I press right over here, now I can bring up the system on this screen. Oh, actually the ICAS is here, so I cannot do it over here. I can move it to this screen by pressing this button. Now the ICAS is over here and I have the complete navigation display. Now I can bring up the system, and for the flight control, I can check. So you can see the elevators are working. Ailerons working. Elevators. Yeah, there is a bit difference over here. I think it will be fixed the next updates. And the rudder is also working. And ground equipment is clear. Now it's time to turn off the APU as we have the power from the engines. So we don't need the APU. You can just turn it off. Press 3. APU. You can just see that electrical systems. Now the APU is off and you have electrical power from the engines. And that's it. Now before takeoff, set the flaps. So now I will also turn on the lights.
Ground Boeing Hotel Zulu. Juliet Yankee Delta ready to taxi straight out departure with Kilo.
Let me change the frequency. Okay. So flaps required for the takeoff, 5. So let's set it to 5. So flaps set. That's it. And after takeoff. Not required. Just press this button CDU, control and display unit, and that will disappear. Just disengage the speed brakes, and that's it. Now you can turn on the lights. You need the logo, and you need the lights for the wing, and then runway turn off lights. No need for the landing lights. And strobe, you will turn it on once the plane is on the runway. Now everything is looking good. I think I haven't skipped any of the procedure, and everything is now good, and we will not have any issues. Get the heads-up display, and this is the brightness for the heads-up display. You can change it. In the night, it works good. So now, if you want to adjust the view of the heads-up display, as you can see, it's not appearing well. It's not there. Let me just change the time and make it more visible. As you can see, so what you can do is this. You can press Shift W and S to move forward and backward the cockpit, and then A and D to move left and right to get the best view of this is the heads-up display. And then you can press Q and E to move up and down, Q for down and E for up. So I think that's a good view. Right now, I'm holding short of runway 15 right, ready for the takeoff. Before this, let's turn on the strobe, because once you're on the runway, you need the strobe. And then you can press engine to get rid of this information over here. Then go to the FMC and look at the speed and altitude constraints. So I will be cruising at 36,000 feet, and this is entered over here. So all the altitudes are over here, and at this point I should be above 2,500, and then there is no restriction. So everything is good, as I will be using LNAV and VNAV. So that's why the plane will follow all the speed and altitude constraints. LNAV is for the lateral navigation and VNAV is for the vertical navigation. That's it. And one more thing, just go to this display over here, press menu and select data, and now you will be able to see all the altitude and speed constraints over here. And plus you can press weather to get this view. That's it. Now there is another thing I want to tell you. This is let me just that was funny. Okay, so this is actually a button for the auto throttle. If you press this, the auto throttle is activated for the takeoff. It's a derated takeoff, and it's derated to 20%. So hardly 67.2% of thrust will be required. So for the takeoff, I will actually set the thrust to 20%, and then afterwards I will activate auto throttle. So in the Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, you can press this button, and the auto throttle was activated for the takeoff. But for this simulator right now, it's not available. So I have configured one of the buttons on the controller that I have. Let me just show this to you. So if you go to this Thrustmaster TCA side stick, it's the button on the front, and let me just show it to you. It's auto throttle, so you can search for it. And it's joystick button 1. And auto throttle, take off and go around. So you have to select this option and assign a button to it. You can even use your keyboard for this. So that's it. So after setting the thrust to 20%, then I will press the button 1 to activate auto throttle for the takeoff. Let's release the parking brakes and take this plane to the runway. So now I'm on the runway, and I have just stopped right now. Just to show you one thing, on the heads-up display over here you will see this dotted line, which is your takeoff reference line. Let me just change the time and show it to you. Yes, it will appear over here, once I will activate the auto throttle. This is actually your reference line for the takeoff. Once you will take off, just make sure that this indicator is not above that line, and that's it. Otherwise, there are chances that you will experience a tail strike. So this is just one thing I wanted to mention before the takeoff. Let's release the parking brakes. Now I will push the yoke forward, and I will keep on pushing it till 80 knots, and then I will release it. It's just to keep the plane stable on the runway. Now 20% of thrust, and auto throttle activated. You can see the V1 and VR speeds over here on the heads-up display, on the prime flight display. Just remember this thing that now 80 knots crossed, I can release the yoke. Do not activate the autopilot right immediately after the takeoff. Just give it some time, because if you do it, then the plane will drop and the speed will keep on increasing. So you have to wait for some time to activate the autopilot. And this is VR. That's it. Now you can see this reference line over there. So that's it. Positive rate of climb, gears up. And now I can increase the vertical speed or the climb rate in order to adjust the speed. Now if the speed is reducing, you can decrease the climb. Now I can further decrease the vertical speed. And with this, I will also retract the flaps. So over here, I can track the flaps by 1 notch. Right now at 5 degrees, I can keep it at 1. And that's it. Now I can activate autopilot. And that's it. Now it's good. Now the autopilot is trying to adjust the speed, and that's it. So above this speed, I can fully retract the flaps, because this is the up speed. The plane can fly without any flaps. Now this part of the prime flight display is the flight mode and initiator, FMA, and it will show you different modes of flight. So right now LNAV is active, and the plane is following this flight path. And VNAV is speed, which means that the VNAV is active. The climb rate is carried out, or rather calculated by the autopilot, and the speed is also adjusted as per the flight plan. Now, although there is I think a constraint of 250, I think till this point, yes, there is a constraint for 250. Now the speed will increase, as you can see, and now I can further retract the flaps. Now the flaps fully retracted. This small circle shows you the flight path, and this is your flight director, so you have to keep this small one in the middle. So the autopilot is actually doing it, but if you're even flying it yourself, you have to make sure that it remains in the middle. So now as the plane is above 10,000 feet, I can turn off the lights. Only strobe, nav and beacon will be on throughout the flight. That's it. Now let's explore the modes of the autopilot. Right now, the vertical speed is calculated by the autopilot. I can change it to vertical speed And now I can adjust the vertical speed. In this mode, the priority is given to the vertical speed and the speed is compromised. As now you can see that I have reduced the vertical speed, so the speed is increasing, but it will not go more than 250 because over here now the speed is out of the VNAV mode, and now I can adjust the speed myself. So I can just change it. I can keep it at, let's say, 240 and then adjust the vertical speed. But in this mode, the vertical speed will always be the priority and the speed can be adjusted by you. So even if I try to increase the speed, you will see that the speed will not increase because the vertical speed is high. So if I reduce it, then you will see that it will increase. So at any point you can press VNAV button and go back to this mode. Now there is another option of flight level change. So in flight level change, the vertical speed is calculated by the autopilot, but you can adjust the speed. Now even you can adjust the speed like this as well. By pressing this button, you can just control it, or you can press the flight level change. So flight level change is useful in this plane because, and especially in the simulator, because I'll show you one thing, that if I press this hold button for the altitude, the plane will level off at the altitude at which I've pressed this button, and it will keep on flying at this altitude. If I want to start the climb again, it will not start. It should, but it doesn't. Start to climb. So even if you press this button, nothing will happen. So in order to start the climb, press this button, flight level change, and then the plane will start to climb. Let's wait for it. Now you can see the thrust is getting adjusted. And now the climb will start. So that's how you do it. And once you have a good climb rate, then you can go back to the VRAM mode. I think this is a bug which will be fixed in the coming updates. Let's hope for it that it's fixed. So these were the two different modes I just wanted to show you for the vertical navigation. Now let's talk about the lateral navigation. As the plane is now above the transition altitude, you have to change the barometric pressure to standard. Just press this button and now it's standard. That's it. Now talking about the lateral navigation, you can use the heading mode as well. So first of all, let's adjust the heading, and the required heading is 124. So this is the heading bug, and you can just move it. And you can see now the heading bug is set. Now I can press this button and the plane will go into the heading mode. If I'll show you on the flight mode annunciator, you will see that instead of LNAV, now it's heading select. So the plane is going in this mode. Now if I move this heading or change this heading, move this heading bug and change the heading, the plane will actually move left and right. That's it. And at any time I can just press LNAV again, and now the plane will start to follow this flight path. But it will not follow this flight path if you have a huge deflection from the flight path. So let's go back to this heading mode again, and let's have a big deflection. And let's see what happens. The deflection is even shown over here. It's 0.1 nautical miles towards the left, and it will keep on increasing as the plane keeps on going towards the left side. Point 4 towards the left, 0.5, 1.7. Now if I press LNAV, you will see that the plane will not start to follow this flight plan. Now the active mode is the heading select mode for the navigation, and LNAV is armed as it's appearing in the white color. So in order to follow this flight plan again, I will just move this heading button towards right in such a way that I intercept this line. Now in this case, as soon as the plane will intercept this line, it will start to follow this flight path. Now the plane is near the flight path, and soon it will go back to this LNAV mode to follow the flight plan. Let's wait for it. 1.3 nautical miles away towards the left. And now LNAV is active. So this is how you go back to the flight plan if there is any discontinuity or your plane deviates from the flight plan. Now there is this last thing I want to show you. You see this hold button. So what is the feature of this button? Let's say right now I adjust the heading button and I want to follow this flight plan. Now I press it and the plane is in the heading mode, heading select mode. So when I'm now changing the heading, you can see the plane is turning left and right. But what if I hold it? So let's say if I want to go back to this right position, if I press hold, the plane will actually hold the current heading. And I can adjust the heading. And once it's adjusted, I can just press this button again and the plane will follow this heading. Now again I can press hold and it will just start to follow the current heading at which I press this button. Now I can press it again and the plane will go back, and with this I can press LNAV. Now it's again deviated from the flight path and it will start to follow it, and that's it. So this is how you change the heading and the climb rate of the plane and the speed. Currently I'm cruising at 36,000 feet. Soon I will be near the top of descent. So before this I have to select the target altitude for the descent. Let's get the approach plate for Abu Dhabi International Airport, and runway for the landing is 31 left if I'm not wrong. Yes, it's 31 left. Let's select it. It's even mentioned over here in the flight plan, runway 31 left. So this is the altitude at which the plane will be intercepting the glide slope. So let's set the altitude to 3000. So as soon as the plane will cross this stop of descent, the descent will start. Another thing that we have to do is this, select the speed for the approach and the flaps. So right now the gross weight of the plane is 202 tons, and it was actually with 24.1 tons of fuel. So what will be the fuel? 2 tons of fuel will be burned. So I can reduce like 2 tons from the gross weight, 200 tons. Let's set weight 200. Actually these speeds are really high because I'm using 30 tons of fuel. I just set a very high number of fuels, and trust me, this is the second time I'm recording this video. In the first video I damaged the landing gears. So let's select this setting, full flaps, 152 knots approach speed, and that's it. So Everything is good now. Let's wait for the plane to start the descent. And one more thing we have to check is the ILS frequency. Yes, it's there. So it's 109.3 and the heading is 306 degrees. That's it. So everything is good now. So let's wait for the plane to start the descent. Now the plane is near the top of descent and soon the descent will start. As soon as the plane will cross this point. And then with this, you will also see the vertical deviation indicator on the PFD. And now you can see the descent has started. Now this is the vertical deviation indicator. So this indicator shows you the deviation from the vertical path. If the plane is following the vertical path, then it's in the middle. If it's over here, then it means the plane is below the vertical path. And if it's over here, it means the plane is above the vertical path. If the plane is above the vertical path, then, it's something really serious. Because you will miss all the altitude constraints, and plus there are chances that you will also miss the glide slope. You will be at a higher altitude. So you have to have a very high descent rate in order to land. And if you have a high descent rate, then it will be difficult to control the speed. So that's why you have to make sure that this diamond remains, or triangle remains in the middle. And right now you can see the autopilot is trying to follow this vertical path. No, it's not. Otherwise, what you can do is this: you can activate the speed brakes. Let's say if I activate full speed brakes, you can see extended, and now it's there. And now I can deactivate the speed brakes. That's it. So this is how you follow the vertical path if there is a deviation. Now the transition altitude for this runway is 13,000. So the plane will be soon below 13,000 feet. You have to change the barometric pressure from the standard to the one provided to you by the ATC, or you can also set it from here. Weather 1020. So I can now press this button, standard, and change the units, and I can move this knob, the smaller one, to change the barometric pressure. Otherwise, I'll just show you one more thing. If you press comma on your keyboard, it will be adjusted. It's 1019. So I can just keep it like this. Or if you want, you can change it to 1020. You actually have to do this in order to get the correct readings for the altitude. So if you're getting this by pressing comma, then just keep it over here. Now let's look at the speed constraints. So by this point, 240 knots. And after this point, 230 knots. That's it. So these are the speeds at which you can extend the flaps. Below 260 knots, you can have 1 degrees of flap, and below 240 knots, 5 degrees, and so on and so forth. But I will not extend the flaps because then the speed will reduce. So I will just keep the speed like this. This is the speed above which the plane can fly without any flaps. So below the speed, you have to extend the flaps. So once the speed decreases to 210 knots, there is this point at which the speed will be 210 knots over here. Yes, at this point. So for this, then you have to extend the flaps. So till this point, we can just go like this. And below 10,000 feet, you also have to turn on all the lights for the landing. Now this was the chime for the seatbelt signs, and the seatbelt signs are set to auto. Now I can also turn on the lights for the landing, and that's it. Now I will just wait for this point, because let me just bring up the chart. So there's this point Pegam over here. The altitude should be 4,000, and this is the initial approach fix. As you can see, IF is there, and then this is the intermediate fix. At this point, the plane should be at 3,000 feet, Lubeck, which is 13 nautical miles before the runway, as mentioned over here. D distance 13.2, and once the plane is at this point, 9.2 nautical miles before the runway, then the plane will start to follow this glide path, or rather glide slope, because if you're performing RNAV or RNP approach, it's glide path, and in ILS you call it the glide slope. But in these charts you have GP. So now I will just wait for the plane to reach this point Pegam, and then I will just take you from there. Now the plane will be near Pegam soon, so let's bring the checklist. So if you press this button right, then you will see the checklist over here on the screen. For the descent, recall check, because you have to press this button to check for any issues. Checklist was incomplete. Auto brake set to maximum. Required for the landing. Landing data done. Approach briefing complete, normal. And now for the approach, altimeter set. And now for the landing, I will just keep this checklist over here to remind me if anything is left or not. So now the speed is 210 knots, and I have flaps extended to 1 notch. And now you can see the plane is following this vertical path, and soon the plane will be aligned with the runway. Now it will level off, and it will just keep on flying at this altitude till the time it's near this point, Lubeck, and then it will descend to 3,000 feet. And right now you can see the ILS information, IAW, this is the identifier. 306 is the heading, and the distance is 22.9 nautical miles. Now as the descent will start, so I will also start extending the flaps, because flaps provide drag. So it will be easy to maintain the speed of the plane. The approach speed is 153 knots, if I'm not wrong. 152 knots. Yeah, it's also here, mentioned it over here. So this is the reference for the landing. The speed should be here. And now you can see the diamonds have started to appear for the ILS. So this is for the glide slope, or for the vertical path, and this is for the late fill alignment. Right now just only one left turn is required, and then the plane will be aligned with the runway. And with this also adjust the heading. So you can set the heading button to 306. That's it. Now I can further extend the flaps. Set to 10 degrees. That's it. I can just close this window. And now, in order to follow this, or rather, in order to perform this ILS approach, you have two options, localizer and approach. If you just only press localizer, then the plane will do this late fill alignment with the runway. and it will not follow the glide slope because the plane will level off at 3000 now, and once you want the plane to follow the glide slope, if it will not follow the glide slope if localizer is active. For this you have to activate approach. So once you will activate approach, the speed will no longer be in the VNAV mode, so you have to adjust the speed yourself. So this is something you have to remember. There are few things you learn the hard way. I'm making this video the second time because I told you the first time it was a disaster. You will just see it on your screens how you damage the landing gears of this Boeing 787 on landing. So I'm just looking forward to a good, nice, smooth landing this time, although the speed is mid-high. But anyhow, let's see. Now the plane will level off at 3000. That's it. I can further extend the flaps. I can just keep it at 20 degrees. You cannot fully extend the flaps till the time the gears are down. Otherwise you will hear an error. So now let's arm the speed brake. You see this mark on. Just move it to this point. And now speed brake on. Just 6 nautical miles before the runway. I will lower the gears. And then I will extend full flaps. So everything is good now. As you can see, this diamond is moving in the middle. So I can straight away press approach. I can even press localizer, but as I told you before, it will be only lateral alignment with the runway, and the plane will not follow the glide slope. Now you can see this diamond is moving in the middle. So, oh, the speed is still in the VNAV mode. Wonderful. No, see, as soon as it starts to follow this glide slope, then you have to control the speed yourself. So I will just bring the speed to the reference level, which is 152 knots. And as you can see, the plane is now in the approach mode, so both LNAV and VNAV are deactivated. So VNAV is this and LNAV is this. So the plane is following the localizer and the glide slope. It's mentioned over here on the flight mode annunciator. Just 1.5 nautical miles to go. Then I will lower the gears. Now this is the flight path, the small circle, and just make sure that the flight director is following it, and it should remain in the middle. Because I will be deactivating the autopilot and I will try to land it myself. So it's one of the challenges that I've given to myself. That's it. Now I can lower the gears. That's it. And now I can extend the flaps to 30 degrees. Now I can get rid of the checklist. Not required. And I can just zoom in. At this point, you can also turn off the weather, and you can just bring this view so that after the landing you can look at the airport map. Just a suggestion, but don't do it. Line 3 is there. Glide slope flare. And it's actually configured for the auto land, but I will try to land it myself. As I told you before, it's a challenge I've given to myself. So I will press this button, deactivate the autopilot. Press it again and make sure it's off. Yes. That's it. So let's see. Although my landings are really bad. Hardly I had some good smooth landings. Because you have to practice a lot. You should at least do 10 landings before you make a video for the YouTube if you're into making videos for YouTube. You can see I'm just trying to keep this small circle in the bigger one, the flight director. And that's it. Soon I will be reaching minimums. Not a bad one, still. The plane landed. No error for the landing gears. And that's it. The speed is below 80 knots. I can deactivate the reverse thrust. Now you can see the auto brakes are in action. And now I can apply brakes to deactivate the auto brakes and then just get the flaps up, and that's it. So this is how you perform an ILS approach and landing with the Boeing 787-10 in the Microsoft Flight Simulator 24. If you have any questions, you can ask me in the comment section, or if you want to add anything to this video, the comment section is there for you. Thank you very much for watching and have a nice day. Hope to see you soon.